Welcome to the Rust Belt Rundown, brought to you by Rust Belt Recruiting. This podcast is designed to shine a light on the meaningful work being done in Northeast Ohio and the surrounding region. We will convene manufacturing executives and Northeast Ohio business leaders for candid discussions about their business, regional happenings, industry trends, entrepreneurship, and more. Now, let's get running on the rundown.
Welcome everyone to episode 21 of the Rust Belt Rundown. I am your host, Paul O'Connor, and on this episode, we are joined by Nate Stansberry, newly hired Director of Recruiting at Rust Belt Recruiting. Nate, welcome to Rust Belt and welcome to the podcast, man.
Thank you, Paul. Great to be here.
Congrats on your new role. We're going to get into that later, but let's talk about you to start. Obviously, word on the street is that you consider yourself an expert fisherman. I have never caught a fish.
Thank God. All that really would do is make you borderline employable, and then probably in any relationship you have. My wife is a saint. But yeah, right. It's hard to hold down a relationship and still fish at a level. But I've been a charter boat captain for like 15 years. It's crazy. Wow. Yeah.
Can you, I don't even know where to begin. Like, I feel like, does this only happen in Florida? Like, can you do this?
No. Hey, I fish the Great Lakes. So I'm, from the Rust Belt and have spent a lot of time on beautiful scenic Lake Erie, but I also spent some time on the East Coast and West Coast doing saltwater trips and all that.
So what is the best trip? What is the best trip to take?
The best trip?
If I was only going to do this one time, where should I go?
All right, you need to go to Montauk straight up, because that's the most civilized trip. I think it really has the great biodiversity that you want, but the infrastructure, it's perfect. It is absolutely perfect. It's no early mornings or late nights. Frankly, you could go middle of the day, fish are busting everywhere. It's beautiful out. You're close to New York. If you wanted to go into the city, it's an amazing place. So Montauk would be, if you were going to go anywhere and go fishing, that would be the place to go.
How did you get involved in this? How did you become a captain?
I was on a boat when I was 8 days old. My babysitter was a World War II veteran, a surgeon actually, and he would watch me on Tuesdays, and we'd go muskie fishing together. And he had a lake house, so he was one of my babysitters. I had a few, right? But between my dad, who was an avid outdoorsman, my great uncle, who was the World War II surgeon vet guy, and then a few friends and family. We're always fishing, hunting, doing different things. It's kind of crazy, but fishing for me, that was it, man. I love it.
And you're taking a trip to the Amazon this winter, correct?
Yeah.
Tell us about how this came about. Not too many people just go to the Amazon.
Well, I tell you what. So it was supposed to be like a midlife crisis. I turned 40 this year, and I'm actually going with a friend of mine who was my boss years ago, a titan in the fishing industry. I helped him launch his e-commerce site over a decade ago. And he's like, look, man, you got to go. You got to come. And it's 5 days on a houseboat. It's 2 days on either side travel. It's going to be crazy. We were supposed to go last year, but because of COVID, thankfully we postponed it. And but yeah, we're going in January, right? So
although COVID, I feel like going to the Amazon, that'd be the pretty good spot to be to avoid an infectious disease. But so did you say 2 days of travel on each way? Talk to me. What does this travel look like?
You gotta fly to Brazil, and then you take a jet, and then you take, I believe, a float plane, and then you get to your houseboat.
Wow.
Yeah, but that's normal stuff.
You're not taking too many bags with you, I'll tell you that.
No. When you think about it, you probably get one backpack. But I've been doing trips like that. When I turned 18, I went with my dad and we did the Arctic. We actually hunted caribou, and he took me out of high school for 2 weeks. So yeah, it's pretty crazy. It's some weird people.
That's amazing. All right, so we'll switch gears out of the Amazon.
Sure.
Tell us about your last company, University Tees. Tell me what they do, when you started working with them, kind of their whole story.
Sure. So University Teas is a great company, right? And I've been there for almost 11 years. And basically what they do, they make custom apparel for on-campus groups and organizations. And so their business model essentially has students acting as representatives on campus in a sales capacity, right? And when I started, it was a smaller company, and still has the heart of a smaller company. But we were able to grow the company to, we kind of looked at the numbers recently, and we're talking like 10x growth, and it was amazing to be a part of it. And I'm still a huge fan of the brand, still a huge fan of everyone there. It was a little bit bittersweet leaving, more than just a little, but a big part of my role there was finding students on these campuses, putting the programs in place to, vet about 5,000 students a year. And then as our team grows, we're multifaceted in the fact that we've got this huge rep program, but we also do in-house production. And so we had a pseudo manufacturing company along with our sales and marketing efforts and our creative teams. And we had about 200 full-time team members, about 700 sales contractors, and then another 30 or 40 creative contractors. And so that's where we ended it. Great place to work, a lot of challenges that were really the highlight of, my tenure there. So, yeah.
So, yeah, not too many people stay at a place 10 years, especially, in this day and age, which is almost like a feat in itself, right?
Right. My time was kind of coming at an end with them. A lot of the next chapter of University Teas really was, not in my skill set, which is rapid growth, recruitment, talent acquisition at a very fast pace, right? We were well positioned really in 2019, right? Like January 2019. I was planning on exiting within 6 months. And so the pandemic actually breathed a lot of life back into my role, as a lot of the country, if not the world, was dealing with the whiplash of not being certain of what the market was going to hold for you as a business, as you as a person, having to shed a lot of team members. We were a production company, right? And so our stay-at-home order forced us essentially to lay off significant amounts of team members. Also, we are subject to the collegiate market. Colleges were shutting down. We didn't know where we were going to be in March 2019. By May, PPP kicked in. A lot of those, thankfully, and a lot of things kind of fell our way. And we began the process of rebuilding the organization. And I believe, we hired over 100 full-timers back in, new people in that year, that 2020 year.
Wow.
Yeah, it was crazy, right? And it was terrifying, and a lot of, some of my best work of my career. And, I would never say, wow, what an experience, and try to put a positive spin on it. But
of course,
that truly was, I was happy to be in the position I was in at the time. And, I kind of found myself on the other side. Our fiscal year goes July to July. And for the first time in a while, and, this is probably an overshare, but, things are looking up, right? Things are looking up. People are going back to campus. We've learned to deal with COVID as an employer. We understand where, what we need to do in order to ensure a safe workforce. We're way better prepared than we were. And so, re-enter this, it's more of a timing thing with me. And when you couple that with the mission of Rust Belt, that's always been something that I've taken to heart. You got to understand, both my grandparents, sets, worked in the polymer industry, right? Like, you're talking about towns in Akron, Ohio that were based on factory jobs. The best part of my experience at UT's, and this probably is going to come as a surprise, it was having meaningful employment for the people of Lakewood, myself included. I owned a home in Lakewood. I walked to work every day. And when you look in these little pockets, when you look in these little areas, you see these towns and these places, and you can just look at the houses and you understand like what an impact you can make. And that's what got me involved. Looking at Rust Belt and considering what's next, it's always been a passion of mine.
Yeah, and it's a good transition, because that was essentially the next question of like, how did you meet Taylor? Like, how did this all come about?
Well, I'm a fan, right? Like, first of all, I'm a fan, and I'm in the space. I'm a talent acquisition nerd. It's fishing for people. Okay.
That's why you love fishing. This is honestly, the podcast can end right there, man.
The podcast should end.
That's it.
This person is unemployable for sure. No, it's you think about with Taylor and Rust Belt and Jenna and Jimmy and the entire team, right? You start thinking about, it's always about the people. It's always about the people. I'm honored to take on the challenge. It won't be an easy one. We understand what's in front of us. We're looking at a labor market that has suffered and HR teams that aren't really well positioned to do much about it. And I think that's one of the conversations that people aren't really having about this. When you shed your workforce, and you essentially rehire them, and you work in a pandemic, and half the world's working remote, and all of these externalities kind of come at a head, of course there's a labor crisis. There's no process, right? Like, it's a fragmented process. Your leaders probably are just trying to get through their day-to-day, and they're dealing with these things. If there's ever a time to have an agency partner that is going to help you get through this, now is the time. And that was another motivating factor. And so when I saw the mission of Rust Belt and everything that we are going to do over the next chapter in my career, I couldn't be in a better spot, and I couldn't be more excited.
You alluded to some of the workforce changes, right? And what people had to deal with over the past 18 months at this point. A lot of people always like to throw out the little tidbits of, we can't get people back to work and the extra benefit, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I mean, that to me is just one of the most that's like basically picking 1 to 5% of the problem and then just piling everything else. Oh no, that's the only reason people aren't working. It's like, man, you're missing the whole point. But anyway, what has changed the most? What are we going to see in the future? Because people's relationship with work fundamentally has changed. Like, I think in the beginning, everyone was like, oh, wow, this is great. Like, we've really progressed in terms of being okay with work from home because you had to. That was like a decent positive. But yeah. I also think people were just fed up. Like, I'm not going back to this job. I can find another one, or I'm not, So what's your take on that?
Here's the whole thing, right? Like, you gotta play, as a company, you gotta play the hand you're dealt. And what I mean by that, when you saw Amazon and Walmart, right? Arguably, I think they are the largest employers in the US. They telegraphed their moves 3-4 months ago. They told you everything they were going to do. They were going to raise wages. They were going to allow for certain benefits to come in. You saw it all happening. And so they made those changes because they are such a large entity that they can't move fast. If you're a small company, all right, if you're a small business right now, small manufacturing company, play to your strengths. If you can offer extra benefits, offer them. If you can allow people more time off or some flexibility in their schedule, it's not going to cost you money. Okay. You need to start thinking more progressively. You need to start thinking about your business. Like, how am I going to beat Amazon? You need to wake up every single day because Amazon is doing that to you. They're waking up every day thinking, and their only card they're going to be able to play, the only card is money. They are going to only play the money card. So you need to have upward mobility programs. You need to make an impact in your community. You need to get creative in your sourcing, right? And so what does that mean? If you can offer career advancement training, you need to do that. If you can compete on wages, you'll eventually lose to Amazon, but you probably need to revisit your wages, okay? That's just a reality too. And then if you can offer some intangibles, if you can be flexible with schedules or just with people, treat people like people, right? Like they're not going to be able to treat people that the same way a small shop can. So do that. I hate it when I hear a business leader say, oh, I read this book by this person who is unrelated to your business. Listen to me. If you want to run your business like Bill Gates ran, like Microsoft or whatever, fine. Like be my guest. All right. You're not Microsoft and you're not Bill Gates. So you need to run your business, all right, and specifically your people, right, the people side of the business, in an arena that you are going to win. You got to play where you're going to win. And so many small businesses have that ability because they are mom and pop shops, and they're well positioned to be more agile and offer these types of benefits.
Okay, I got a tough question for you.
All right.
So over the past 25, 30 years, you look at any graph, right? Everything has gotten more expensive. Not a profound statement.
Yeah.
In the last 3 months, we have finally seen wages increase. Why did it take 25 to 30 years for that to even remotely inch up towards what it should be? Like, as things get more expensive, people should get paid more. I mean, this is basic economics 101 that every single one of us has probably taken if we went to school. But there's also a narrative around, you can't do that. You can't do that. Businesses will go bankrupt and all these things. And so why do you think this has taken so long and that now kind of, sort of, we're okay with it?
I'm no economist.
Loaded question, I know.
Right, like I'm no economist, right? I like, spend some time on Bloomberg occasionally, right? Shout out to Bloomberg. But for the most part, wages have remained flat because the workforce has accepted it. All right. And I hate to put that back on the workforce because that seems unfair. But the truth of the matter is, businesses, they're organizations, right? They're organisms. They're going to try their best to drive net income results. Okay. The most expensive thing you've got are your people. Okay. So of course you're going to try to keep wages flat. Why we have accepted this, that's a question for people who are probably a lot smarter than I am at this. I would say on a personal level, though, you shouldn't accept it. You should move on. You should look for a better job, right? I think that it's an awakening for people. Get out there, find something that is better suited for you. That's going to pay more. That's going to appreciate you, right? As if you're, sitting there wondering why, you're not making the money you want, today's the day to change that.
Yep. 100%. Okay. I got a technical question for you.
Yeah. Anything.
So over the past few years, and honestly, you would probably know when it actually started to come about, but maybe 5-10 years ago, companies started to shift to use AI to review resumes.
Right.
In your opinion, has this helped or hurt the applicants and the employer as well? Because I have to imagine at some point somewhere the employer missed out because they used this and they didn't see a diamond in the rough, and then vice versa, right? So what do you think about the technology?
Well, first of all, the robots are coming for us all, right? Like we got to just accept that. Like the robots are coming for everybody's job. I'm sorry, it's true though. Look, AI can help specifically with like diversity inclusion efforts, right? Challenges that are going to arise from scaling within the vetting process, right? If you're a growing organization and you have a small talent acquisition team and you have robust needs and you need to get through, a lot of internal recs, it can be a helpful tool. And my advice is this: if there are machine learning or AI options available to you with a current vendor, right? Like, so within your network, whether it's like job boards or whatever, try out some of the features, right? See if it increases your efficiency. Because that's really what it's about. And when we start thinking about efficiency, the scary part about efficiency is you're going to miss out on some great people, right? And AI is only going to give you results that you tell it to look for, right? And so there is some bias still in there. And people, thankfully for recruiters, they're complicated. And like you said, like the AI won't be looking for that diamond in the rough. Now, will someone want to pay an agency fee for a diamond in the rough? No. But we're talking more broadly about talent acquisition, okay? So as we enter this market, right, where you may have to make concessions, okay, on candidates, they may be not your ideal exact employee, profile, right? If you're going to have to make concessions in order to, train them or get them up to speed on whatever, your AI process will fail you, right? It just flat out. You're not going to see, the things that, I guess a person would see. But I also don't know that you should pay agency fees for things you don't want, right? But for what it's worth, if I were in-house recruiting part of an TA team internal, I would be leery of using AI unless I was getting the results within technologies I was using. I wouldn't go out to adopt it tomorrow.
Got it. Okay. Okay, so talk about, in recruiting, what are some intangibles that you look for when making a hire that may not just be on a resume, right?
So, when you think of it's, as a recruiter, right, the things I always look for, honesty, obviously, follow up. I want someone who's gonna just be I'm gonna be straight up with people, right? I'm just gonna tell them, hey, here's the deal. I have a big motor. I love being on the phones. That's just me, and that's what I chose to do for a living, right? When I talk to somebody, though, no matter what the role is, I look for them to be engaged in the conversation. I look for us to get to the hot buttons quickly. Why are you looking, right? What's motivating your search? What are your parameters, right? Like, what are your nice to haves? What are your need to haves? And those things can include commute, scope of work, obviously compensation, right? Like, and we need to address those things on our first talk. And so what you're often going to hear is like people say, oh, maybe don't bring up this or maybe don't bring up that. Personally, I want to know whether or not this is the right fit for you, and vice versa every time. That's all I'm looking for, right? And I'm going to treat you fairly. And yeses and nos are the exact same thing with me. They are worth the same. A no and a yes are worth the exact same. And so as a candidate looking out there, if you're worried about, if you're dealing with whether it's internal or external talent acquisition teams, if they're not going through and going through and answering all of your questions, right? Like, what would it take? What's it going to take for you to make a move type questions? They're not, I'm not saying they're wasting your time, but of course it's going to leave room for there to be some, I don't know, just some really awkward conversations later, right? And that's what we're trying to avoid, because just because you're not right for this job, right, today or whatever, or you're not ready to leave, doesn't mean you won't be ready for a move later. And that's the way I always treat it.
Yeah, I think it really comes down to expectation setting, right? Just if you can, from the get-go, have a conversation and a relationship that starts with honesty and transparency, it's like, then what can go wrong? If it's not a fit, it's not a fit. Why would we waste each other's time, right? So what, okay, last one before our last one. 2028, 2029, 2030 rolls around. What is the number one skill you're hiring for?
Ooh, okay.
Not
So-
necessarily like coding or like an intangible skill. Like, what are you hiring for?
I'm hiring for emotional intelligence. I think that you're going to see, you know, you will see there being a need for people who truly can connect with people, who know exactly, you know, how to treat people, how to interact with people in person, and that is what that's what I'll probably be recruiting for: true relationship, you know, driven individuals.
Builders. Yep,
Mhm.
100%. I love it. Okay, sometimes the hardest one, sometimes the easiest one, depends on the guest, but let's hear some of your favorite dining options in the Cleveland area. Takeout, sit down, maybe a new COVID favorite, whatever you got.
Yeah, well, shout out to East 55th Marina, right? Like for my people out there, if you're looking for a nice like waterfront dining option, always a good one. Not the fanciest, not supposed to be the fanciest, right? You know, downtown, really you can't go wrong with much on like East 4th. I love Willoughby. I go out, you know, I'm you know,
What kind
close
of
on
food
the
is
east side,
what kind of
guys.
food is Willoughby?
So what you're gonna see, like, there's a lot, like you got to figure there's like some gastropubs, like, you know, Soul and Willoughby's great. You know, Hook and Hoof and Willoughby's great. I mean, there's some really cool options. I'm trying to think. There's a place, Ashtabula Harbor has like a sleeper of a place. I believe it's Bremick's Meat Market. You need to do Bremick's if you're in Northeast Ohio. You need to go to Bremick's and check that out. It's worth the drive. It is like out of control steaks.
Love it. Well, listen, Nate, this was awesome, man. Thank you for coming on. Obviously, best of luck as you starting to work with Taylor here soon. I'll say a prayer for you.
Hey, Paul, keep me in mind when you want to talk about like the robots taking over, right? You just give me a call. I'll be hiding out. Actually, I'm ready for them. You let me know, okay?
I think the next time we get together, we'll record an episode in the office. We'll be in person, which will be great. But really appreciate you coming on, man. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Have a great day.
Talk to you soon.
Thanks for tuning into this episode of the Rust Belt Rundown. Make sure you check us out at rustbeltrecruiting.com. The Rust Belt Rundown is available wherever you listen to your podcasts. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and click on 5 stars if you enjoyed this episode. See you next time.